Now I'm going to talk about the processes of creating a work and the social aspects of a work. And to do this, I'm going to go into a work that one of my students produced. It's one that I just happen to have been looking at recently, which is why it's high up in my list of recently viewed works. So she was involved in doing a project which is about technology mediated environment. In fact, this work's now already been published, the project status. The latest thing that's happened with that work, it's been approved for publication, and in fact it's published to this student's personal profile page. Now the description of the project was this: PARS student learning experience where in a computer-mediated learning environment, and so on. So this was the project description, and other people were working on similar works but dealing with different specific topics. This was the timeline. The draft was due then, the feedback was due then, revision was due then, and in fact all these dots are green because everything successfully happened. If it hadn't happened yet, it would have been just a dull grey, or it would have been an orange thing. Let's say we're up to revision and it's due to happen, it would have been an orange dot to require that be done. And along the way, there's been dialogue. So she said, I found a number of the peer review comments helpful. She's written some dialogue to me, and I've written a response, and then when it was published I wrote something. So I can actually have conversation about this work while the work is happening. So already I'm starting to get into the social aspects of this work in discussing the way in which, we've got the work here on the left and we've got dialogue about the work here on the right. But also this work went through a number of versions, quite a number of versions to be quite frank. This is the first version back here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the first version and show it to you. Because on the first version, there was some systematic feedback that came in. So while the student was writing, in the reviews area, she saw the review rubric. And these were the review criteria. What's the educational challenge? Pass the practice. Tell me about the underlying learning theory. How does the approach work in practice? What are some conclusions and recommendations? And where for each of those criteria, there were a number of different rating level. Now, if at this moment I was to write a review, and I just want to really show you how a review occurs, I read the work, I scroll down through the work here, I read the work in this space here, and right beside it, what I can do is I can give it a score, and if I want to check what a 2 means, that's what a 2 means, and I want to be very clear about, if I'm giving it a score, what I mean by that. I can write an explanation here, and I go all the way down to the bottom when I've finished, and I either save if I haven't finished, or I go submit. So these reviews can be done from all the perspectives from which you can view a work. The creator can write a self-review, peers can write peer reviews, or I as the publisher can write a publisher review. Now these are the results of version 1, and we've actually kept version 1 and we've frozen version 1 when the reviews were submitted, because these were reviews strictly of version 1 and we want to keep a history of everything that happened. So these are the scores, the average scores across multiple reviewers. Now one person wrote these comments, a number of useful comments. Another person wrote these comments. In fact, these comments were anonymous because the settings in the project were anonymous peer review. As the publisher, I can see the names of people. As the creator, what I saw was reviewer 1, reviewer 2, reviewer 3. So that's what happened on several of these. It's the review process on version 1. What also happened on version 1 were annotations. Okay, now I'm in the annotations area of a different work in order to illustrate how annotations work as a form of feedback. So as I go down here and I mouse over different annotations, it takes me to the place in the text where a particular annotation is made. Okay, so here we are going down and looking at them. And here the annotations might be awkward wording, okay? Or here we've got an annotation from Elizabeth. Why? This is an interesting idea that deserves elaboration. And down here, criticism, check the spelling. So in other words, these are detailed comments along the way. And by the way, if I, as let me just take this particular one here. If I, as the creator, want to ask a question, I can type a little comment in here and it goes backwards and forwards. Now, again, the setting here was anonymous. I can see people's names because I'm in here as the publisher, but in fact these can be anonymous conversations where you're not, the conversation isn't tainted by knowing whether the person is someone you know very well and whatever. It's a purely objective kind of conversation if the anonymous setting has been chosen. And by the way, I'll scroll down now. If I wanted to add an annotation now, so let me just say I want to add an annotation to this here, I go down here and I go create an annotation where I can either make a comment or I can suggest a change, and when I go to suggest a change I can code the change type as well, and I just go add. Another area of feedback we have is recommendations, which is if you would like the reviewer to give a recommendation as to whether the work should be published. And another area which I'm going to show you briefly is the checker area. So here I'm going to run the checker now, and what we do is we use a number of natural language processing algorithms to make suggestions. So pedagogical, spelling, suggestion, shouldn't be, passive voice, no, that's okay, I'll leave it passive voice. The transmission of, there's a hidden verb, maybe you want to say transmit. Provide, complex expression, do you want to say give or offer, suggesting a synonym. So here we have something which is not a passive voice and so on. It's not a conventional spelling and grammar checker. All it does is make change suggestions, and including suggestions of possible synonyms, and as I mouse over each one it takes me to that particular area. So again, our philosophy here is not to be presumptuous in the way that grammar and speller checkers are, which are often full of a lot of false positives, but to be you know, to make constructive change suggestions. So again, in the feedback area we have a number of forms of feedback. We have the work on the left, we have feedback on the right. It's either machine supported human feedback or it's purely machine feedback in the case of the checker.